What's going on, guys? Dylan here. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be making a Weeknd type beat. Specifically, we're going to be making Blinding Lights though. I just thought that'd be a pretty good idea as it is one of the biggest songs ever. The Super Bowl just happened, so maybe people are interested, and what's a better way to learn how to make a Weeknd type beat than actually learning how to make a beat he used. So without further ado, let's get into it. To get started, what I did was I used this synth here. It's just the modern Supersaw Oct in Omnisphere. You can really use whatever sounds the most like the actual song. You can also use Serum and create the actual synths and watch some videos on that, but I just used this because this was easier and I was lazy, and you can't really actually do anything with the song aside from learn from it, because you can't remake it and sell it or anything like that. But here's what the synth sounds like. And in terms of effects for this synth, I use this meta filter here, which basically it filters out the high frequencies but then brings them back in. And then I just added some reverb, which is right here, just to kind of give it more of a vintage sound. So the next part of this beat that I did was the bass line, and there's actually two basses that are going to be used throughout the song. One has a bit more higher frequencies attached to it, while the other is a bit more of like a sub bass, so less higher frequencies, and I'll show you the difference in a second between the two. But basically what I did is I used Trillion, and I just layered these two sounds right here. So if you have Trillion, feel free to just kind of copy this. And if you don't have Trillion, don't worry about it. Use whatever you have and just try to find like a similar sound. Here are the actual notes. One thing to note is that these notes are kind of overlapping each other for the most part, and that kind of gives it like a glide or a slide. Cool. So that's the higher pitch bass, here's the lower sub bass. And for this one, just in case you do for some reason have Trillion, most likely you don't. So I use this TR Fuzzy translator and Chillbot bass, and just layer those. I took out some of the high ends so it sounds more like a sub bass, and then I added some sound goodizer on here just to make it hit a little bit harder without. Towards the end. And next, alright, so just one more instrument to add, which is the lead, but I ended up adding that more towards the end of the song, so let me show you guys the drums. And I actually have a drum loop in the description that you can download if you want to kind of get the exact sound that I'm using here and I'm about to show you guys. But I do recommend following along, just because you're going to learn a lot of cool stuff that you may not have known, just in order to kind of get a more vintage drum sound that you can use on any of the beats that you make. But here is that sound. And to start, you're going to want to start with a kick, and you just want something punchy. So something like that. And it's just going to go on these notes here. And that's just playing all the way throughout on all 8 bars. Then the next thing that I added was a snare. And you just kind of want something that sounds like a basketball, like dribbling off of the ground. That's at least what this sounds like to me. And that's just playing on the same note throughout the 8 bars as well. Then you're going to want a hi-hat, and you just want something kind of punchy that sounds like this. Alright, you get the picture. But here's how that sounds now, and it's just going to be on every other in the pattern. And then the last thing that you're going to want to add is a clap. And I just added a little bit of reverb to this one. And that's actually just going to play towards the very end of the 8 bars. So let me show you how that sounds. So like super 80s. But now onto the effects that I threw on these drums to kind of give it more of a vintage sound. Added a EQ, and so I just add the EQ to the low ends and high ends. It just makes everything kind of punch through a little bit more. So here's that sounds. Then I added a sound goodizer. If you don't have this, then just use like some sort of a saturation plugin if you're using like a different VST other than FL. So that just makes it hit a bit harder. Then I added a compressor here, and here's the settings I use. You can use free compressor as well. And I just turned up the threshold to about 10.4. Made sure the attack wasn't, too high as well. And then here's what it sounds like. And then the last thing that I did was I used a fab filter again, and I just cut off some of the highs that were introduced from doing all this other stuff. And that's how I got that sound. So here's how it just sounds all together so far. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for any copyright stuff, so I'm just gonna play this for a second. Maybe I'll play it for like 5 seconds. I feel like that's probably safe. Alright, that's enough. Last part of the song, and probably the catchiest part of the song, is the lead. And I'm just gonna play you guys what I laid down right here. It's the correct notes for sure. However, the sound is not exact, so just keep that in mind. I use this sound right here, which is the PWM melodics in Omnisphere, but just kind of use something similar, or if you have Serum, you can probably just create it as well, but I do not, and I also just didn't feel like doing it. So here's what that sounds like though. Alright guys, so that is pretty much the video. Thank you for checking it out. If you are still here, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and do all of that good stuff if you can. And I will see you soon. Peace.